to Messages from a Bottle. I'm Rick.
Hello, and I'm your co-host, Lirina.
And we just want to talk about our intention for this podcast, which is all about healing.
All about healing. This podcast is for all of those people out there who love having conversations that raise their vibration and raise their level of consciousness. And we both decided that there was just too much negativity out there.
Yes.
There's too much bad marketing. There's too much appealing to your lower self. So this podcast is all about appealing to your higher self, because we're going to fight back. We're going to make sure that we can evolve on a much grander scale and go back to the types of human beings we used to be when we were more connected to nature, more connected to ourselves, and more importantly, more connected to each other.
Yes.
So sit back and enjoy.
And that's a great point, Lorena, is all about this reconnecting with each other, especially in this time of a lot of uncertainty. I think, we're coming from a place of, we're also trying to evolve. So we hope that you join us in this journey of healing and trying to bring out that light in sometimes a world that can feel a little bit dark. With that being said, do you want to get to your chiming in? Today we want to talk about forgiveness and talking about how forgiveness has helped shape your life and your experiences with forgiveness.
Yes, and we also forgot to mention that you're listening to the very first episode of this particular podcast. So bear with us, and we're running a test run, and we're just going to have fun. More importantly, we're going to go deep, though. We're going to get personal. We're going to get outside of our comfort zones with our situations, and we're going to give you some stories about our lives and our history, because we want you to be able to relate and also share your stories in return.
Exactly, and that's actually the key part, because these experiences that sometimes we feel alone with and sometimes stuck with aren't necessarily just our experiences, because, the idea of this is to share these not out of judgment or this is, what you should or shouldn't be doing. This is more of an open question, an open learning. This is a way for not only us as people to heal, but hopefully by sharing our time so far on this earth experience, we can help heal each other. And we really would love to hear your feedback and comments. You can message us on, Facebook.com, and we'll get that Messages in a Bottle at Facebook.com. Please feel free to respond, and we really want to engage with you, the rest of our contemporaries here on this adventure of Earth.
Exactly, because we're not going to do this alone. We're going to do this together, and it's important that we know that we're not alone in our pursuit of the higher grounds of consciousness. So with that said, I think it's time for us to go into our quotes on forgiveness.
So
that we picked out.
Go ahead and set your... Now, audience, again, since this is our first show, we're just going to a little bit talking about, kind of talking with you here. And as this begins, Lorena, if you could go ahead and chime us into our first questions on forgiveness.
Okay, so let's go ahead and set the intention. Moment of silence, please. And there it is.
Thank you very much, Lorena. Now, let's talk about forgiveness. As we have just celebrated, right now it's currently January 1st, 2018. Happy New Year. And in that, light, we are talking about forgiveness. And not only things that we have asked others to forgive us for, but some things that we've had to forgive from others as well. We want to know, think about some times in your life where you have had to forgive people or have sought forgiveness. What feelings and attachments were tied to those experiences? What do you think about that, Lorena?
Yes, I think I would like to share this quote that kind of expresses that. And it's one from Iyanla Vanzant, where she says that if you are a woman, you may need to forgive those whom you have loved or those who refuse to love you, those who have hurt you, shamed you, and abandoned you, or those who left you scarred or wounded. So I think that also goes for man or woman, actually. And those types of things are important because we're not going to go through life without some sort of hurt, some sort of shame, some sort of regret, some sort of thing, because we're human, right? So we're trying to make sure that we continue our process of evolution in such a way that we don't carry those things with us. We're always trying to live in the now and be alive, right? Because the end goal is to actually be alive. But when we hold on to things where we're not in a state of forgiveness, we're not able to let those things go, and we carry them with us, and it keeps us actually constantly in the past. So I have a few examples of where I've done this, and I'm sure, like Rick, you have too. Like we've struggled. This is something that we've struggled with tremendously. So
definitely, and it's something that's not, as simple as saying, I forgive somebody, or, I forgive you. Because a lot of times, including myself, I've said those words, I forgive you, but have I really? Obviously,
yeah, exactly.
I haven't. There's still a lot of pain and hurt. And, I guess the first person you have to forgive is yourself. A lot of times something happens to us, we blame ourselves, but this show is all about trying to let go of those past moments in our life.
Go ahead. I particularly, I have had an experience, like I can tell you, like my mother, she has been the greatest forgiveness challenge for me. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and include my father in that, and just say my parents in general, because growing up, I was thinking like, I need better parents, and I was probably partly right. There were certain things that I knew that I needed as a child that I know I did not get, and so it just led me down certain paths. And for the longest time, I didn't forgive them. For the longest time, I held anger towards them, and I'm talking for years and years. And this anger, little did I know, was the driving force that was leading me down these negative paths.
Right.
So eventually I had to come to a point where I had to let those things go. I had to forgive, and I had to just start seeing it like it's not for them, it's actually for me. And that those kinds of things, when it comes to forgiveness, dealing with that anger and the hurt and the pain, and going underneath all of those levels, going underneath, getting to the core of that actual emotion, which is like the hurt, dealing with that hurt. It's very hard to forgive because you feel like, I've been wronged, and you're feeling like I should have some sort of retaliation. And really what's happening is you're retaliating, but you're using yourself and to express this anger and this retaliation, and it really just does more damage than good. But it sometimes, as young adults, it takes us a long time before we actually come to that point. So there's a lot to be said about the damage that when you're not forgiving, what it can do. And another point is when you get to the point in your life where you can just forgive right away, just instantly. I think that's like something that we can all attain, a goal that we can attain, because it's like we want to just let things roll off our backs, because really, if it's not going to matter in, what was that saying? Like, if it's not going to matter in 2 or 5 years, it's not important. So it's actually, and that's so true. It's like, why carry it into the next phase.
And I think a lot of people, and me included, is, we're in a time period in our society where, forgiveness, you make a mistake, somebody has to, there's some form of justice, you wronged me, so now you must be punished. But this is not what forgiveness is. It's not about this punishment. We're talking about forgiveness from love, okay? Because we've all been in the situation where we've had to ask for someone's forgiveness. And you think about, some people are not ever able to give that to you. So we have to find a way to be able to give it to ourselves. Because the truth is, that will continue to harm us and prevent us from finding peace in our life. And you can see that, I think, if you just take a look around the human condition that is currently spreading all over the world. But the thing to remember is no matter what you've come through, you're not alone. And this is what the intention of this show is to remind you of, is that we're all in this together. And your experience is my experience. And it may not be the same exact circumstances, but the message and the forgiveness is the similar. Now, Lorena, you mentioned with your family earlier, do you think you're able to find that deep level of forgiveness which is allow you to let that go? Real quick, I was reminded just now about this quote from Riccardo Ferrari, which basically says, forgiveness is giving up the idea of a better past. Do you think you've been able to give up that idea of, you mentioned the perfect parents, but hey, maybe those are the exact parents you needed in order to get to where you are now.
Exactly, and that was the breaking point. That was the turning point to where I knew that I had completely let go of those negative emotions and that resentment and that anger that I've been carrying for so long. That was the turning point when I was able to look back and not look back and say, oh man, why did this happen to me?
Right.
But look back and say, wow, actually, had that never happened to me, I probably would not have done all the amazing things that I've done in spite of it. Well, and that's also a way to know that, when you can, not just say, okay, that happened, great, but when you can look back and be grateful that it happened.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing breakthrough, and that's actually something that we can probably cover in another podcast that happened on my trip when I went to Peru and worked with plant medicines. I was able to come to that conclusion actually internally, actually feel it, not just in my mind where I it's a good thing to see things that way and go back and color your past from red to green and things like that. No, it's actually it's so much different when you really embody that red to green. It's such a much more amazing experience, and it feels really it really does take a load off of you. And I felt super light, and for I hadn't talked to my mom in a while, maybe over a year or so. And actually, after that experience and having that realization, I went and called her and reached out. I wasn't able to contact her, but still, it was a gesture in the right direction. And that's how I knew that I'm not going to keep moving forward and become my higher self carrying this weight. So it was such an amazing thing to actually be grateful for.
And if we are
my past.
Working on forgiveness out of love, then it's with that same love that we have to realize most people don't hurt us on purpose. It's not like someone intentionally tried. I mean, there are some people who do, but, in that place or in a moment of time where someone is, they're not their best selves. I haven't been my best self to all people. And if you can find that compassion for people who have hurt you, then maybe you will be also shown that compassion. We have to give back to the world what we need in return from it. We can't just say, I forgive you, but then hold some grudge or, try to wish that situation better. I went through a very difficult, traumatic experience when I was younger. And for years and years and years, I did not acknowledge it. I try to block it out. I try to just, think about, oh, that doesn't affect me anymore. But I think, when you get to that point where no longer your life is no longer working and you can't figure out why, you have to unearth those feelings. I'm talking about specifically, being raped by a neighbor when I was 5 years old. It's something that I held so much shame up until a couple months ago. I won't even say a couple months ago. I will actually say probably a couple days ago. And all of a sudden it just hit me. I have to forgive, because I have to forgive myself, number one, for thinking I allowed it to happen in some way. I have to forgive the person who did it to me, because I'm still carrying it with me, but it's prevented me from having more solid relationships and, those trust issues. But forgiveness, I think, is the first step in healing. What do you think on that?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely the first step. And when you can see the importance of it, because that's another thing too, like you said before, things happen for a reason. And people don't intentionally do it. They're trying to meet their needs and go with what their awarenesses are at that time. So sometimes it's just, this is how life unfolds for us.
Yeah.
So it's important to look at it from the perspective of what positive things came out of it versus what negative things came out of it. And I think once we can do that, it's easier. It becomes a little bit easier to let it go and forgive, because you see it as oh, this happened, this bad thing happened, but it actually, that was a blessing in disguise, because my entire life has been a progression of these types of events, both good and bad.
Right.
But the good and the bad kind of go hand in hand with each other, and being able to appreciate it as a collective is definitely a big step in moving forward, and an evolution as well, because we start to accept life.
It is a collective. It is our shared experience. And, I think if we look at it this way, I love, you mentioned Iyanla Vanzant earlier, and she said, it's not about you or being your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper. You are your brother. You are your sister. So whatever has been done to you is also something that you could have done to someone else in a different way, in a different method. And so by allowing forgiveness to enter in for those past harms that have occurred on you, you're able to then seek forgiveness for, ask for forgiveness for the same things you've done with others.
Yes, and the thing is too, what I guess we're just not aware of or not in tune with is that we have the strength to do it.
Yes.
It takes tremendous strength and courage to do something so powerful that can be so life-changing and so freeing. It takes a lot of strength and courage. And I think a lot of people sometimes we may not believe that we are capable or we are that strong, but we in fact really, really are.
Yeah.
So that's the entire reason for sometimes going deep down within ourselves and going within and removing the distractions so that we can really get in touch with our strength and our power, because the worst thing could have happened to us, but we still are better because of it, because we're just that strong. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that.
No,
and
that's true.
That can also be something that holds us back in this process of evolution. But coming to that awareness is also another great thing. Just understanding the undertone of the negative things and the bad things that happen to us, the undertone of that is it's pushing you to dive to your strength.
Yes.
We're diving to the depths of our soul so that we can find the strength, find the courage to overcome it, and to be the higher person that we were meant to be. It's all leading us there. It may happen in the form of a curve, or it's not a linear process by any means, but it's all leading us to that point.
And I would like to say, it's something that doesn't necessarily happen in an instant. It's something that, for me, what was effective in forgiveness is praying on it every day, asking for forgiveness for myself, for others who've harmed me, and really, with all of my heart, seeking forgiveness, because, you know, until we really forgive ourselves and forgive others, it's going to be very hard for us to really find that peace, I believe. And, you know, I'm still working on it, you know, but we're still working on peace. And that's why it's important for you, our listeners, hopefully you, to please share your stories with us.
Yes.
We're definitely not coming in as we're also on this journey with you. So I believe what really is going to help people be able to forgive each other more and have more compassion is if we can share our stories without judging, but loving the mistakes, loving the shame, loving everything that's happened, and really putting it out there and letting it go.
Yes, and like you said, like, it's an everyday thing. Like, it's not like, you know, one size fixes all, or one day this is all going to be fixed. It's something that every day you have to make that choice to forgive. Like, I think it was, I'm not sure, it might have been Iyanla again, who just said, you know, every day, forgive everyone for everything, just every day. Every single day, it has to be a habit.
Yes.
And the more we do it every day, the more we get into the habit, then the better we become at it, and the more things that may not affect us like before, because what's the most important thing?
Yes. And we really hope, you know, our intention of this podcast is to really share our experiences together in a safe, non-judgmental environment. And, you know, wow, the time has already gone so quickly, but we definitely would love to hear from you. You know, reach us out, Messages from a Bottle on Facebook. Click on our Messages from a Bottle on Outlook.com. But we would love to have you a part of our show.
Yes, and go ahead and please subscribe and share this podcast with us, rate us on iTunes, and we just really want to thank you guys for being with us and sitting in on this conversation. And like we said, we really want to open it up. Maybe you want to come on the show and share your experience, because really this is what the kind of thing we all need to be talking about. So we just really want to thank you guys for tuning in and letting us share with you a piece of ourselves.
We would really love to have you on the show. I mean, that's the whole idea. This is not about me, and this is not about Lorena. This is about
us.
The human condition, this earth experience, and hopefully helping us transition into a better person and being able to fight the darkness through light. Because once we get all that negative energy out of us, all that darkness, we put that light on there, we can finally release it. And we're hoping to put that out into the world. Now, Lorena, I think it's time for the healing homework.
Okay, so right now, what we're going to do, we're going to send you guys away with a message from the bottle. But first, what we want to do is give you an assignment, something that you can reflect on throughout the week until you hear from us again. And that is going to be to sit down and take about 5 minutes to write about something that's holding you back from forgiving either yourself or a person who has wronged you in some kind of way.
Yes.
And sit down and just journal about it. Maybe write like 100 words and think about and reflect on ways that you can move past it. How can you dive to your greatest strength? Because it's within, it's not without.
Exactly, I agree.
With that,
we just want to, again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and, you know, listening to our message, and we hope to hear from you soon. We do want to leave you with one last thought.
Yes, so I'll go ahead and close, and then we'll hear our message from the bottle.
Thank you. Today, I'm going to read a prayer of forgiveness. If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly through their own confusions, I forgive them. And if there is a situation I'm not ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that too. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle myself, judge, or be unkind to myself, through my own confusions, I forgive myself. Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening.